I'm going to mess with Alan today.
Hey, you're switching it up. Disoriented.
Right?
Right, man.
I mean, how many years? And we haven't even changed seats?
Right.
Okay, so Stacy had me on the Captivated podcast.
Right.
And she was already sitting there. I sat down on this side of the table. I said, babe, I don't think I've ever sat on this side. I mean, like you said, we're at 800 and, some odd podcasts.
And we've never changed sides of the table. Yeah.
That is so funny.
Are we doing it this way today?
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
Talk about setting your ways,
All right.
Yeah, so.
All new terrain.
Yeah, welcome back, friends. John and Alan, mixing it up. If you weren't watching that on YouTube, we have sat in the same seats for the podcast
for hundreds and hundreds of episodes.
It's just so funny how you get into a routine and it's just your norm, you're comfortable. Right. I like this.
This is so disruptive. But the cool thing is I never knew your chair had a seat warmer and a back massager. Like I haven't ever had that on mine.
I'm supposed to bring the chair with me.
I like it.
Anyway, Alan's now on the east side and I am on the west side here. Hey, folks, this is the week of February 10th.
17th.
This is the week of February 17th. And I wanted to thank everybody again for helping to support this work. Yes. Some really beautiful things are going on. This work is breaking into really remote and needy places in the world. It's breaking into lots of languages from a really small team in a really small shop here in Colorado. We're reaching into the Arab world. We're reaching into Eastern Europe. Yeah, it's all over South America in some really unique places. So thank you. We are crowd-funded. Everything we do here is through the generosity of our supporters like you. I just want to say thank you so much as you remember us each month and help us keep the lights on and keep things going.
Right. We've been described by a lot of folks as like a lemonade stand with a nuclear silo underneath because of the reach. It is an international ministry, but it's a relatively small team here.
Yes.
Just doing it, less than 20 people.
Yes.
And the donations that come in are from a relatively small group of people.
Yes.
And so we're really dependent on the generosity and love of those men and women whose hearts God moves to say, we want to support this and be part of this.
Yeah. Rescuing hearts. Are you kidding me? Healing lives and bringing people into the relationship with God that they've always wanted to have. I mean, gang, this is a good investment. If you've been investing, thank you. If you haven't yet, man, come join in and help us rescue folks.
Well, and John, they're going to see today what some of those donations and investments, what the fruit of that is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so if you're wondering, well, what would you do with a donation? You're going to see a lot of that today.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. So thanks. Before we get into today's podcast, let's keep our habits. It's part of our spiritual rhythms to pause and release absolutely everything so that you can just come back to your own heart, your soul, tune in to how you're doing today. And then in that, God is almost immediately accessible because he is accessed through the heart and the soul and in the heart and soul. So let's take our pause. So Father, Jesus, Holy Spirit, I pause to give everyone and everything to you. Would you help me do this? Help me in my heart and soul to just truly hand it all over for a moment. I give you my work. I give you all the people in my life. What is it that you need to release today, friends? What's clamoring for your attention? What's already got you spun up? What heartache do you need to just I just give this to you, God. Let's take a moment and do that. And as I am releasing, I am asking for your love and for your life to fill me again. Restore our union. Breathe into me your very presence, God. That's why I do this. I let go in order to find you. And then would you meet us all here in this week's podcast? In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
We've been wanting to do this podcast for a really long time. So
Yeah,
I'm
we
excited
have.
it's here.
Yeah, we have. It was kind of, I think initially it was sort of generated out of encouraging people to come into community
Mm-hmm.
with one another,
Yes.
and how rich that can be.
Yes.
Even if what you're doing is just hanging out together,
Right.
sharing life,
Right.
checking in, how's your heart?
Mm-hmm.
Just that.
Right.
In the psychological community, it's called co-regulating, just to be together and kind of come back to a good place.
Totally. And we have so many people when they do write in with questions and things. One of the questions is, I love the conversations that the two of you have or the people in our podcast have with each other. How do we do that in our daily lives? How do we find those people?
Yes.
How do we have those conversations regularly?
Yes.
And in that sense, this podcast is really like the wardrobe door. We're inviting people through the Narnia door into more.
Yes.
And there's so much more, but
That's good.
many have never heard of those more things.
Yeah. Yeah. So because this podcast is international and global, we have tens of thousands of followers who don't know about our live events.
Yeah.
And and what and don't know kind of the story and the bread and butter of this. So our unique anointing over the years has been curated experiences. Like our deep understanding of the human heart
Mm-hmm.
and how you take someone through a progression,
Yes.
through an experience that then really does open them up to a richer experience of God
Yes.
and the healing of deep places in their soul, to the recovery of dreams
Yes.
and calling and all of that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So we began with what we called Wild at Heart Boot Camp. And it's a 4-day retreat that began here in Colorado, and then we've taken it all over the world. We continue to do that around the world. These became so popular that we had to go to a lottery system.
Yes.
And because men fly literally from all over the globe to get into this, because word got out,
Right.
these work.
Yes.
Like they work. Again, because of the curated experience, if you can guide people through a journey of the heart
Mm-hmm.
into something that is truly transformational, like
Yes.
irreversible change,
Yes.
not just inspiration.
Right.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of fun. We rode some ATVs, we heard some great speakers. It's not that.
No.
It's not that at all.
No.
And so some of our friends have hosted these now, called a basic.
Yes.
We just call it the Wild at Heart Retreat now so that everybody understands one thing. That's what this is. And then there's the Captivating Retreat and other things. So what people don't know is that we made all this available online for free.
Yes.
We've taken the entire experience, we've filmed it very well, edited it beautifully, included all of the film clips that we use,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're
Right.
they're baked into
Right there.
the content right there so that people can come together and actually go through a Wild at Heart retreat
Yes.
wherever they are in the world.
And on top of that, they're with men or women who are in their part of the world
Yes.
locally. So after that is over, Some of those groups end up staying together for small group studies
Yeah,
or
they do.
fellowship of other kind,
They do.
fires, all kind of
Yeah,
things.
that's right. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk you into our retreats. We're going to open up some of the content. If you're watching, you get to see the video of it. If you're listening, you're going to hear the audio because the content is so good. So we just pulled out some nuggets here and there to reflect on the richness of it,
Mhm.
the curated experience,
Yes.
the journey of the heart, and yeah, let many people into a side of our world that they might even know exists,
Totally.
but also might not know. Oh, this is all online now on our website. You can access all of this
Yes.
now. So we're going to start with the Wild at Heart retreat. So this is the 4-day men's retreat. And we're going to pick up with a very short clip from opening night. I'm talking about the core desires of a man's heart and how important it is if you're going to get your life back, if you're going to recover your soul, you
Yes.
can't neglect desire. You can't neglect the core
Mm.
longings that God has put into the soul of every man. And then we're going to get to women here in just a moment. So let's listen to this. And if you follow the kind of the trajectory of the Genesis story, you go back into chapter 2, you get a deeper cut and get a little bit more of Adam's mission. He's born out of the earth, which is such a fascinating thing. And boys love to get dirty for the most part, right? And I've got Sam on the team. My son's got a darling little 5-year-old girl, always has a bow in her hair. His 3-year-old son always has a shirt on backwards, his t-shirt. He just doesn't care. It's just not a category. Fashion is not a category for him. For some men it is. That's cool. Not for him. Adam's out of the earth. He's given this gorgeous, wild world here. And it's a phenomenal thing. Eden was not the entire planet. Eden was just a region. And we were meant, through fierce mastery, to bring Eden to the rest of the world, okay? To bring that recovery of Eden to the world. And oh my goodness, Adam, like waterfalls, the open ocean, architecture, literature, music. Nobody's discovered any of this stuff yet, right? It's a blank slate. It's an open canvas. Adam is given adventure. And if you get guys talking this weekend and say, hey, tell me about a time you really felt alive, you're going to hear stories of adventure, probably. Because it is a spiritual longing of the masculine soul. It is nourishment to us. And for some guys, like I said, it's starting a company, or another guy, it's travel. For another guy, it's rock climbing. But there is a deep, deep spiritual craving. Look at boys, right? You give boys a trampoline, and it is not enough that they just doing, just stand there and just bounce on it. Pretty soon they're doing crazy stuff. They're trying to learn flips. I came out one day and my son Luke had taped to his feet the deck of a skateboard. He'd taken the trucks off, the wheels off, and he had the deck of the skate. He had duct taped it to his feet, and he's bouncing on the trampoline doing flips, because he was trying to get ready for snowboarding. I'm like, pal, that is ingenious. That is so boy. And my son Blaine now has got a little guy. He's 16 months old. He just wants to climb. Give me the highest thing in the house, right? The couch, the counter, the dresser. He just wants to climb. He's just the little adventurer is in there. It's like a spiritual craving. And the fascinating thing is, you follow the story of God rescuing the hearts of men through the biblical narrative, and it is adventure. Hey, Abraham, come on, leave your home, leave your family. We're going somewhere. Hey, Moses, here we go. Come on, we're going somewhere. Like Joseph and Daniel and David and the disciples. The life of Paul, holy cow, 3 shipwrecks. His life is constant, high octane adventure, and he is walking intimately with God. God isn't sparing him the adventure. He is forming something in Paul's soul through the adventure that can't be formed by any other means. I love opening night. I love this opening session. And Alan, as a creative, I'm just curious, like you're listening to the idea that God, like Easter eggs, put all of this into creation, waiting for us to discover music,
Yes.
architecture, right?
Right.
Geography, botany, everything
Yeah.
is no one's discovered anything yet.
Yes.
And within humanity are these unique callings
Yes.
that God has given each of us, right? As a
Yes.
creative, what's that stir in you?
Oh, it just stirs my imagination for the goodness of God, the wildness of God,
Mm,
because this isn't just, well, nobody knew what the world held and Adam and Eve got to figure it all out, right? Like this is
mm-mm.
for us. Like it's for all humanity. We are still discovering and finding these things that have been hidden since the world's first days.
Yes.
And God has uniquely created us to be part of his creation in that way. So I think that's why I so avoid things that are formulaic or, well, no, 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 this is the way it's always been done. Because with God, he's always showing how to make things new, how
Yes.
to try things no one's ever done,
Yes.
thought of,
Yes.
experimented with.
Yes.
Whether that's story or gardening or woodworking or coaching, or the ideas with God, all things are possible. And without him, we
Mm,
really, the vine, the branch, we can
mm.
do nothing.
Yeah.
But I love how that was baked into creation.
Isn't it amazing? And friends, um, your calling will go on forever.
Mm.
It is recovered in the new earth
Yes.
when all of the harm and the damage is addressed, and we're able to carry on, kind of pick up the story with healed bodies, healed souls, and fully, gosh, empowered creative faculties.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Because especially for, I know many people who they're in their 60s, 70s, their hearts have just been set free and they're discovering for the first time, oh, this is what I love to do.
Yes.
But I'm 70 or
Yes.
80 and I missed it when I was 20, 30.
Yeah.
Well, like you're saying, you didn't actually miss it.
Yeah.
You've got all of eternity in the coming kingdom
Yes.
to grow in that
Yeah.
with God.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So the Wild at Heart Retreat is a 4-day experience for men that goes into all kinds of beautiful things like this, uncovering, recovering, clearing the debris, healing the hearts of
Yes.
men. We have an equivalent called the Captivating Retreat. And some of the folks who have led these personally, it was called Captivating Core. We're just calling everything now one thing.
Yes.
Sometimes you can experience it here live. Sometimes you can find it around the world, but mostly now online and led by anybody who wants to do it
Right.
with their friends. Yeah. So we're going to pick up with Friday morning at the women's event. Stacy is teaching with a really intriguing insight into why God allows heartache.
He creates man. He takes the soil and adds soul and breathes in life, and he creates Adam. And there is Adam with perfect relationship, nothing in between him and God. There's no fall, there's no sin, and yet God names it as not good. It is not good. The first thing he ever names is not good for man to be alone. And so what's interesting is Adam is created in the wild. God takes Adam and he puts him into the garden and creates Eve. Eve is the crown of creation. She is God's piece de resistance. God likes to save the best for last, too. It's us. And he creates us, his men and his women in his image, to be his servants merely? No, to be his intimate allies. We are created to be his friends in partnership with this great drama that is unfolding around us. That's why we have the hearts we do. That's why we have the desires we do. Our hearts are telling us the truth about who we are and what we are created to be and to do. And God takes an incredible risk. He endows us with a dignity that is almost unimaginable. He gives us the freedom to choose against him. Why? Why? Well, because our God is no puppeteer. He's no puppeteer. If you want a world where love is real, then you have to have choice. Love is chosen, it cannot be forced. Philip Yancey tells the story of how a prison guard can make an inmate do anything. Horrifying. Eat human excrement, shoot their own mother. There is only one thing that the enemy has never been able to make an inmate do: love him. And God wants our love. It is why sometimes he seems almost shy to use his power, because he doesn't want to overwhelm us. He wants to woo us. Douglas Hall wrote, God's problem is not that God is not able to do certain things. God's problem is that God loves. Love complicates the life of God as it does every life. See, he wants us to choose him in the midst of the face of the immense brokenness and ugliness of this world. And we kick off the honeymoon by sleeping with the enemy. Most of us don't understand what sin is. We trivialize it. It's binging on Netflix. It's not making a full stop at a stop sign. It's you name it. But God calls sin adultery of the heart. Sin is what you give your heart away to instead of to the heart of God.
Okay, that little snippet alone, you could spend a long time thinking about, because the question of why God? Why, not only why did you allow it in the world, but why did you allow it in my life?
Right.
How do I reconcile your goodness with heartache and loss and death and sorrow and evil in the
Yes.
world? And yeah, just that idea that God had to give humans and angels freedom of choice if you want a world where love is real.
Yes.
It's chosen. You can't have robots. You can't have puppet. You can't create such a rigid system to avoid heartache that no one's actually making any meaningful choices. Everything's pre-programmed. What kind of world is that?
Right. And to know that God is okay with risk, because, like she said, it's one of the riskiest things
Yes.
to do, to give somebody
Yes.
choice that could ripple through the whole universe
Yes.
in good or bad ways.
Yes.
And yet God continues to say, it's your choice.
Yes.
Will you choose me?
Yes. And then that beautiful passage in the Old Testament where it says, in all their distress, he too was distressed. You know, that Stacy was talking about how love complicates even the life of God.
Yeah.
George MacDonald said, yeah, all things are possible with God, but not all things are easy in the sense of just the wave of the fairy dust.
Yeah.
You know, and he's Santa Claus and he just, whoop, you know, and everything's fine. It's like, no. When you are working towards the redemption of human hearts, it is a deep and dangerous mission. And you see it in the life of Jesus, right? I mean, they end up
Yes.
killing him.
Right.
Now, it's all part of the plan, and the redemption that comes through that is incredibly beautiful. But yeah, I love that session from Stace.
Well, Stacy is such a gifted teacher, such a powerful teacher. I've had a really rare experience in terms of a guy in that I've been able to attend probably 8 or 9
Mm.
captivating weekends.
Oh,
I used to be over the resource center,
yeah.
and so I would be there on site, and
Yeah.
once the sessions would start, I could sneak in the back and
Yeah.
be back there with the tech guys. And it was so powerful to see not only Stacy's teaching, but the effect and impact she has on the
Yes.
women there, the way she
Yes.
can relate to them, but then invite them into something more. And it's also amazing to me, John, that it's rare for a ministry to have a husband and a wife who are both incredibly gifted communicators, authors, speakers, who have the same vision and passion for rescuing human hearts. And the two of you, sometimes separately, sometimes together, do that so well. And that's not lost on me. And Stacy has a podcast and
Yeah.
you have a podcast. So it's great to see both of you in your glory
Yeah.
on mission together.
Yeah. Yeah. For high school. God set that up in high school. Stace and I met in high school. Um, yeah, but just so folks are getting a sense of this, the captivating retreat is beautifully filmed. It's beautifully done. The teaching, and again, the curated journey of the heart. And what we are hearing is that as people are doing this together all over the world in small groups and large, through the online free content, whole thing's available.
Yeah.
We're hearing the exact same stories of redemption, breakthrough, healing, that women and that men receive in our live events.
Mhm.
The same exact impact is taking place through the video experiences. And you would think, really, through video? But man, God is in it.
Same God,
Yeah.
same rescues,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's profound. So there's one more retreat that we want to talk about that's live, but is also now available. And folks saw part of it last week. Right?
Yeah, Survival School just became available. So brand new content and experience for most of the men who will go through this. We recommend you go through the Wild at Heart retreat first, because this is kind of an upgrade of
Yeah.
that, a deeper
Yeah.
cut.
It's 401. Yeah.
401, yeah, it really is. And so you saw a session last week in the podcast or heard it. And if you didn't, we encourage you to go back and watch that, because we have one full session
Yeah.
from last week. But the clip we're going to show now really is about fragmentation and integration.
Yes.
And John, it's one of my key scenes, I think, of the whole event that you're teaching on here. So we're going to bring people into this, and they'll see you're using an analogy of stained glass.
Okay.
And rather than tell them
Okay.
what it is, let
Yeah.
them listen and watch.
Yeah. So let's listen in.
Jesus is the integrating center, literally, of creation. He is at the epicenter of it, but also of you and of me and of us. This is enormous. This is so helpful in an hour like this one, where the war is essentially fragmentation and decreation. Okay? I'm going to have the guys put up a slide of stained glass. It's such a beautiful image, because every person you meet is stained glass. Every person, okay? Beautiful still in our creation, beautiful still, but pieces, parts, fragments of a whole. Still glorious, still like the radiance of God, still flowing through you. You meet the image of God in every man and woman you meet. Yes, absolutely. There's still radiance there, and joy and love and playfulness, all kinds of great things. But it is essentially a collection of fragmented parts. Because we do not live in the habitat that our souls were made for. You were made for Eden. You were made for a world where shame didn't even exist. There was no harm. There was no evil. There was no violation, neglect. Yeah, you get the idea. So you live far from Eden, and so do I. And it is our fragmentation where we are vulnerable. Our fragmentation is where we are vulnerable. Okay? And you know this. It's the stuff that just comes out of nowhere, the defensiveness or the need to be loved, right? The search for approval or the search for comfort, solace, intimacy, and partners that don't belong to you, and partners whose names you don't even know. Okay, it's all that. It's the compulsions. It's the rage that comes out of nowhere. And here's the beautiful thing. We're just going to take the shame off of all of that right now to say, of course you are fragmented. You live on Omaha Beach. You live in the Ia Drang Valley in Vietnam. You live in Afghanistan. Like, this is a world, a story of which is the end, the climax of a war of annihilation. So no shame, fellas. Are you kidding me? Every man, woman, and child you meet is stained glass. Yes, you are a beautiful, beautiful image bearer of God. And yeah, we are fragmented. So there's wounds, and then there's something deeper where parts of us split off, right? And remain stuck at certain ages of our life, okay? Our fragmentation is where we are vulnerable, and Jesus is the integrating force of all things. That is the most beautiful thought. That's like, whoa, there's a way out. There's help. There is care. There is reintegration available through Jesus, who has access to your entire story, and he has access to your entire created being. That's just really good news, guys.
Yeah. Yes. There is no shame that we find ourselves deeply broken people. There is no shame that you have these unresolved issues yet within you, your fear, your compulsion, your hiding, whatever it may be, your rage, your need to control things. The ministry of God is to come into those places. And gang, this is also, this is the epicenter of the new book that comes out in March, Experience Jesus, really. And it guides people through the process of the integration of fragmentation. But what I want to say is, so you've got these beautiful 4-day retreats. They're available on our website, and they can be hosted anywhere by anyone in any context for free. Right. You just kind of get in, sign on, and then you get access to all this with no strings attached. And people are using this in all sorts of contexts. They will do it. They'll do it as a retreat, and they'll get, 4 or 5 of their friends, men or women. They'll get a VRBO or Airbnb up in the mountains or something, go down to the beach, and they'll just do it as a weekend together.
Yes.
With some of their best friends.
Yes.
And it is absolutely transformational. Or others are hosting like an actual retreat, and they'll have 30, 40 women coming.
Right. And this, it's everything from 3 or 4, like you said, to my father-in-law has actually helped host 15 of the Wild at Heart
Holy smokes.
retreats. And the last one had 650 men.
What?
And was done through the church that he's a
What?
part of. It's the men's group, year away. They have an
Yes.
event every year. This is it.
Yeah.
So large or small, whether you want to attend one and find one on our site and just say, I just want to find one near me and show up.
Yes.
Great. If you're saying I want to host one, fantastic. It's really a plug and play experience. You don't have to know how to lead a group. You just have
Yes.
to say, here's the venue. Come join us.
That's good. And by host, it could be 3 of you.
Yeah.
And you do it over a whole weekend, or you do it several weeks, in a small group setting.
Yes.
I do want to say that, as we've rolled these out, made them available online, a 4-day experience is a big ask for a lot of people, particularly if it's their entrance into the message,
Right.
right? So what we have also done is created these beautiful, what we call experiences. There's Wild at Heart experience, the captivating experience, that are very, very short videos. They're like 18-minute videos, only 6, more of like a small group study
Right.
kind of a format,
Yes.
although done in a much more creative and much more beautiful and deeply, deeply stirring way. And again, folks are using you can just get on our homepage right now. They're on the homepage. You can just get on and just watch them
Right.
and go through it for your own heart. We want to give you a little glimpse out of the Wild at Heart experience and the captivating experience, because they're done very differently than the retreats. We brought in a small group. We brought in our friends
Right.
and sat together and processed our stories and filmed it.
Yeah.
And then brought in the teaching that helps to put things in context. So we're going to go into session 4 of the Wild at Heart experience and listen to a man talking about his father wound. And then I come in as teacher and kind of expand it to everyone who's listening.
He had an issue with some business, and my grandfather disinherited him. He started drinking, and so alcohol was his the way he numbed the pain. And that's all I knew about my dad, that there was no emotional connection, there were no words of affection, nothing. I'm in my 40s now, and I have never heard the words "I love you" from my dad, not a single time. I was really afraid of him. A single look would terrify me. There was no initiation either. My dad didn't teach me to ride a bike or to fix a bike, nothing. So to that question of, do I have what it takes? The answer for me was absolute silence from my dad. It was like he burned this ginormous question mark on my chest. And every time that I had to face any challenges, it was just the evidence that I didn't have what it takes. And so I became an expert at navigating my friends' environments. I didn't want them to come and see how I lived. I didn't want them to come and see who I really was because of the shame. That was the phrase. What is wrong with me? I should know these things and I don't, so it just came back to me. There's something wrong with me.
There must be something wrong with me. How many of us have felt that at some point in our life? As you listen to Pablo's story, you can hear the heart of the boy longing for 2 things. Every boy has 2 core needs: the longing for love from his father, and then the search for validation from the father. And what's remarkable about this is you even see it in the story of Jesus. You might have heard about the baptism of Jesus in the Jordan by his cousin John, and the story is that his father, our Father, actually speaks. There's only a couple times in the Bible that God speaks so that everybody standing around there can hear it. And this is one of them. It's like he can't help himself. And what he says is this. He says, "Jesus, I adore you, and you are the real deal. You have what it takes." Right? This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. In other words, I love you, and I could not be more proud of you. And this is what a boy needs from his dad. And like Pablo's story, all of our stories are kind of mixed on this, right? My dad was a pretty good guy early in my life. We shared fishing together. I was the only boy in our family, and my sisters didn't want to go camping and fishing, and so I got my dad. When I was young, we'd go on these weekend camping and fishing trips, and we'd get out in those old aluminum boats, those rental boats, and just try all day long to try and catch fish. And I still remember his delight when I would hook up and I'd be bringing one in. "Attaboy, Tiger, bring him in, attaboy." Like, I remember that delight. But then he went through just a series of brutal things in his own life, a number of job losses, I think a pretty hard marriage, really. And he took to drinking. And like happens with many men, it got him, took him out to sea. And I grew up in an alcoholic home. And like Pablo, I felt like I just had this huge question mark in my life. I didn't know, do I have what it takes? I didn't get an answer. I wasn't sure I was loved. I certainly didn't think I had what it takes. And it wasn't until I was a young man in my 30s that I finally began to acknowledge how much that actually shaped me.
John, that's such a moving scene to hear that part of Pablo's story.
Yeah.
And knowing how the father wound is such a key issue for so many men.
Yes.
And oftentimes they won't realize it until they're at an event or watching a teaching like this. And then they start to understand, oh,
Yes.
and the tears come
Yes.
and the healing begins.
Yes.
And so getting to see that with Pablo is amazing. And I would add, it's something we've seen in thousands and thousands of men who
Yes.
attend these events.
Yes.
So it's really exciting.
Yeah, somehow watching, hearing someone else's story, it allows, it almost like it bypasses the left brain
Mm.
that's always trying to edit things and critique things. It's like it gets straight into the heart and gives you understanding on your story. And that's why we use the format. These are only 6 sessions each. There's a men's and a women's, the captivating experience. I want to share a little bit of that session. This is one about the power of lies and believing lies. It's a very poignant story by a woman. And then Stacy comes in and does a little bit of teaching on it. So let's listen to this one.
To be married to a good man was one of my biggest hopes and dreams. I've actually been married twice, and both marriages failed, and both men chose to be unfaithful. And so dealing with betrayal, and I grew up in the church, so getting a divorce was just like so nothing that I could even like consider. I felt betrayed by God, like why did you allow this? It's played a huge role in how I compare myself to people who are married. They have something that I don't have. Like that thing of I'm unlovable. Nobody wants to love me.
There's a reason why your life has been hard in the ways that it has been hard. There's a reason why your wounds have seemed to land in the same place, speaking to you of the woman that you are or the woman that you will never be. You live in a spiritual war zone. We all do. And if you doubt it, then turn on the news. Go on social media. There are over 40 million human beings trafficked today. 25% of those are children. Depression, it's the leading cause of disability in the world. Suicide is the second leading cause of death. We are being hammered, and most of us are not aware of it. The story of your life is the story of the long and intentional pursuit of one who knows you best, loves you most, in order to woo and win your heart to himself. It is also the story of the long and sustained assault against your heart from one who knows who you could be and fears you. John 10:10 is true. Jesus has come that we might have life and life to the full. But there is a thief.
Sometimes it's really hard for me to tell, is this the enemy or is this God? It is so hard when there is, a piece of truth, that makes you like really question or not. I'm not married and I don't have that kind of relationship. Even though I'd love to have it, it's just not mine. It feels like I'm unlovable.
Sue's story is just so poignant, to go through 2 divorces, to be honest enough to put that out there.
Yeah.
And the shame that comes with it, but the deep message, every person's life, we take these wounds, these arrows, these hurts, these assaults, but there's always a message with it. And the message feels true because it is delivered with pain. It's just, whoa, it's like it is seared into our soul until we are guided through an experience where someone helps us name it, unearth it, and then break the power of those accusations, the lies, the things that pin us down, right?
Yeah,
The
right.
message of the arrows,
Right.
right? So I love that session. And friends, what we're showing you here in this and letting you listen into is the experiences are on ramps into the world of a woman's heart, the world of a man's heart, and the healing work of God there. These can be done in very, very simple settings. Your small group can do this. Your Sunday school class could do these.
You could do them on your own if that's the easiest way for you to start for these
Yes,
particular
we
experiences.
wanted that.
Yeah.
We wanted that to be available. So they're right on the homepage of our website. The experiences
And each
are.
one at the end of the video, we have like 3 questions
Yeah.
for you personally to
Yeah.
journal on or in a group to discuss. So
Yeah.
we help you watch it, but then apply it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you wanted to mention one other resource today
Yeah.
before we close, because what we're trying to do is open up to people. Thank you for listening to our podcast, but our podcast is actually not the epicenter of our work. The podcast is the top of the funnel in a sense.
Right.
It's an invitation into a world of resources
Yes.
for the restoration of your humanity and for a much deeper life and a much deeper life in God, a whole
Right.
new way of doing things. So,
I'm real excited to share this with people. It's been out a couple of years, but it's kind of the best kept secret for a lot of men. And it's a book called A Year with Men, a 12-month plan for your guys group. And the cool thing is, John wrote this, but you wrote it with your son, Luke.
Yep.
And so the two of you put this together, and it's a 1-year plan because guys will say, hey, we've got a group, but now what do we do next?
yeah,
We
after
finished a
6
study.
weeks,
Yeah.
yeah, what do we do?
We've got the same group wants to stay together, but how can we do it for a year? Well, this takes guys through that. And it's really fun. There's a roadmap for how you do your year. And I'll just share it's broken out into different units. One of the units is really cool. My favorite probably is unit 2, which is we all have a story. And guys notoriously, I think, need some help in understanding another man's story as well as their own story, right?
Yes.
But there is a way to listen well and to engage with other people's stories. And if you want to advocate and fight for somebody, you have to know their story.
Yes.
You can't just go in blind.
Yes, that's
right?
good.
So there's 4 parts to that particular unit: knowing your story, talking about your story or telling it, listening to another man's story, and then responding.
Yes.
Because we've all been in settings where you try to tell a part of your story and it goes really bad because the other person's distracted or they jump in and interrupt and try to
Yeah.
fix it immediately or make it about them. Oh, when I was doing that, here's what I found
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah.
So this is a gentle but really beautiful way to handle story, your own and the stories of other men. And that's just one unit in
Yeah.
this book.
Yeah, that takes people. There's a whole year plan,
Mhm.
including some breaks. We don't say, hey, go 52 weeks
No,
straight.
right.
Yeah, there are breaks quarterly, but it's a beautiful plan. And that particular resource, it's a guide, it's a manual, is available on Amazon.
It
right?
is. And if you're a guy saying, I'd love to do this with my small group, then, pick up 10 copies,
Yeah.
5 copies,
Yep.
and introduce your group to it. Or if you're a guy who wants to just read this and see if you want to start a group around this, it's a super low bar way to do something that you don't have to plan every week, that you can just step into that will work.
Yeah. And you don't have to start in January.
No?
It's not programmed to a calendar year. Just the idea of there's a lot of groups out there of guys who, okay, they've done the retreat. It was profound. They've been through a lot of our content together and saying, okay, we're going to stay together. We're going to journey together. Give them a year-long plan is really helpful.
Really helpful. So I hope guys will take advantage of this. Start anytime. You'll have a whole year. And it even has a recommended outing that you do with your guys group.
Yeah.
So part of it isn't just sitting around in chairs.
Yeah.
It's go do things
Yeah,
together,
go
have
play together.
adventures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Friends, I hope that two things. I hope some piece of the content today, there was something in what you heard that you just went, whoa, that is for me. I need to stay with that. And so our encouragement is stay with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Like pray into that. Something came up, something was stirred. Stay with it. I'm also hoping that you got a glimpse into the world of experiences, and literally experiences. We call the retreats, we call experiences a year with men. Also on our website, you can find fires and fires now for women, local gatherings.
Mhm.
And we're announcing the women's fires coming out. Finally got that onto the local platform there on our website.
And if women want to hear more about that, Stacy just did a podcast. So listen to Stacy's most current or one before podcast.
Yes.
And it's all about women's fires.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, because the invitation is, my goodness, could you imagine doing this journey of the heart with a few people,
Mhm.
or maybe hosting 20 people through it?
Yeah.
It would be so rich to do that. So that's our hope. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.